Assalamu alaikum, this is Brother Hameed back again with the Muslim Empowerment Institute. So in this video, we're going to cover purification according to the school of Medinah. But first, I'm going to review and give some clarification on what was presented in the previous video. First, we discussed the principles or the aspects or the matters pertaining to Iman. Iman refers to the beliefs in Islam or theology, or in Arabic you'll hear the term Aqidah. And the matters of Iman are mentioned specifically in what is called Hadith Jibril. Hadith Jibril. A hadith is a documentation of something that Prophet Muhammad said or did or approved of. Jibril is the angel Jibril. And Hadith Jibril is a well-known narration of something that happened during the time of Prophet Muhammad. May Allah bless him and grant him peace. So one day towards the end of Prophet Muhammad's life, a man who was a stranger approached the Prophet and asked him some questions, right? He asked him, tell me about Islam. And the Prophet mentioned the 5 pillars of Islam. Islam is to testify that there is no God except Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger, to establish the prayer, to give the zakat, which is like the charity, to fast the month of Ramadan, and to make the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, if you have the ability to do so. And then the man said, you spoke the truth. Then the man said, tell me about Iman. And the Prophet said, Iman is to believe in Allah, his angels, his books, his messengers, the day of judgment, and to believe in the qadr, the good of it and the bad of it. Then the man said, you spoke the truth. Then the man said, tell me about ihsan. And the Prophet said, ihsan is to worship Allah as if you see him, even though you don't see him, know that he sees you. Ihsan is the spiritual aspect in Islam. Then the man said, tell me about the hour. And the Prophet said, the one asked does not know more than the one asking. And the man said, tell me about its signs. The Prophet said, the slave girl will give birth to her mistress, and you'll see barefoot, naked shepherds, meaning that they were poor, compete in the construction of tall buildings. Then the man left, and the Prophet asked one of his companions, do you know who that was? And the Prophet's companion said, Allah and his messenger know best. And the Prophet said, he was the angel Jibril. He came to teach you your religion. So you see in this hadith, we have all of Islam summarized. Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. Then we went into the details of what makes a person accountable on the day of judgment. And that is to be of a sound mind, to reach puberty or the default age, whichever one comes first, and to have heard about Islam. And if a person doesn't fall into one of these categories, then the person is not accountable on the day of judgment. And we leave their matter to Allah, right? Then we delved into who God is. Allah in Arabic is the term that we use to refer to the Creator, the one who brings things from non-existence into existence. And he is the only one who deserves worship, and we worship the Creator and not his creation. We detail what Tawheed is, which means to make one, or my favorite explanation from one of the scholars, Tawheed is to distinguish between the Creator and the creation. And the opposite of Tawheed is Shirk, which basically means to ascribe partners to God. Now I want to add some more details on this one and give some further explanation. So the creation cannot create. Only the Creator can create. And when Allah created the creation, he also created the different qualities and attributes of his creation. The created things did not give themselves their own qualities, just like the created things didn't give themselves a beginning. If you could, maybe you would make yourself taller, or give yourself longer hair or bigger muscles, for example. Maybe a housefly would give itself a longer lifespan, longer than 15 to 30 days. So a Muslim should know concerning this that Allah is in full control of every part of his creation, and he eternally ordained every matter that is. And if you think about a leaf that falls from a tree, the leaf may move in a bunch of different directions. The wind may blow it this way and that way. It may spin 100,000 times before it lands on the ground, right? Every movement of that leaf was destined by Allah. And Allah is the creator of cause and effect. Hence, causes don't create their own effects. So Allah created the sun, which is a cause. And the sun did not create its effect, which is warmth. Allah created water, which is a cause. And the water did not create its effect, which is satisfaction from thirst. Allah created animals and things that we grow for food as a cause. And the food in and of itself did not create the satisfaction from hunger, which is an effect. Allah created fire, which is a cause, and the fire did not create burning, which is an effect. These things have causes followed by effects, and their creator is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah the glorified, the exalted. Again, the quality of fire is that it burns, and the fire did not give itself this quality, Allah did. Allah could have made water to burn if he wanted to. And it's customary for fire to burn when it comes into contact with something combustible, like paper, for example. Allah creates the attribute of burning within the fire and within the combustible material, so thus it burns. But when Prophet Ibrahim or Abraham was thrown into the fire by the idol worshippers, there's a story in the Quran, it was a miracle that the fire did not burn his skin or his clothing. Now, my experience is if you throw someone in the fire, they're going to burn. Right? But that didn't happen with Prophet Ibrahim. How? Why? Because in this instance, Allah did not create the attribute of burning within the fire. Therefore, Prophet Ibrahim was not burned. Why? Because Prophet Ibrahim was under the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you're protected by Allah, nothing can harm you. The sun can't provide warmth, water can't take away thirst, food can't take away hunger, and fire cannot burn because nothing can harm you or benefit you without God's permission. Allahu Akbar. Then we went into the details regarding the angels, the revealed texts, the prophets and messengers, the day of judgment, and the Qadr. So please review that video and make sure you know it, understand it, so you can teach it to others. Insha'Allah. Now we're going to get into our topic for this video, which is purification and the 5 obligatory prayers. Now, there are other non-obligatory prayers, but whether it's the 5 obligatory prayers or the non-obligatory prayers, they all have a specific preparation before the prayers are made. Now, I'm going to simplify this because many of the books on this topic can be kind of confusing without explanation. Now, the first thing a person needs to do before they pray is to make sure that their body, clothing, and place of prayer is free of impurities. Your body, clothing, and place of prayer have to be free of impure substances before you can pray. And these impure substances include bodily fluids, blood, pus, vomit, pigs, alcohol, animal carcass, and things of this nature, right? Now, pertaining to bodily fluids, we're referring to that which comes from a person's front private parts as well as their back private parts. If any of these substances get on the person's body, clothing, or place of prayer, then you cannot pray until you remove the impure substances by either washing it off, or if it's clothing, removing it, or washing it, or putting water on the spot where the impure substance is, or if it's the place of prayer, washing it off, or praying on another part of the floor that has not been contaminated by the impure substance. And also, when any one of these bodily fluids is emitted from the front privates or the back privates, then this would break the person's wudu, which is the next requirement for the prayer. So if any solid, liquid, or gas is emitted from the privates, whether it's the front or back, then you would have to make wudu before you can pray again. A solid would be feces. A liquid would be urine or any type of discharges through arousal or a natural discharge, or the menstrual blood from a woman. And this is why women don't pray while they're on their menstrual cycle. A gas would be like stomach gas from the back privates. This would all break the wudu. Now, if semen is emitted, then you would have to take a full shower called a ghusl, but we'll discuss that later. Next thing, you have to make sure that you're covered properly for the prayer. For a man, you have to be covered from the navel to the knees. Technically, in the Maliki school, it's just below the navel and just above the knees. Then you have to make sure that the prayer time is in for the specific prayer that you're trying to pray. You can download the prayer app. Then you have to face the Qibla. The Qibla is the direction of the Kaaba in Mecca. In America, it's east. Most Muslims say northeast, but some say southeast. Then you're ready to pray. So let's review this. Before you pray, you have to make sure that your body, clothing, and place of prayer is free of impurities. And we mentioned what those are. Then you have to have wudu, and we'll go into the details on that in a moment. Then you have to make sure that you're covered properly. Then you have to make sure that the prayer time is in for the specific prayer that you're trying to pray. And finally, you have to face the Qibla, the direction of the Kaaba, which is in Mecca. So those are the 5 steps that you have to do before you pray. Now we're going to go into wudu. Wudu is the ritual washings of your limbs that is required before you can pray. And there are 7 of what we call the fara'id of wudu according to the school of Medinah. And these are the obligatory acts of the wudu. Leaving out one or more of these would make the wudu invalid. And there's also the sunnah of wudu, which is like extra acts of wudu, which are not obligatory, but are a part of the way of the Prophet Muhammad. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. We'll talk about that later. The first thing you have to do when you make wudu is to have the intention in your heart when you make wudu, like when you start the wudu. And that means for you to intend to make wudu to remove yourself from a state of impurity due to you doing something that would break your wudu. And we'll cover that in a moment. Or to fulfill an obligation like to perform the prayer or to touch the Quran or recite the Quran and so forth. Or to render your worship to be permissible by removing something from preventing you from praying. And that's basically the same thing I just said, but reworded. So you make the intention to make wudu. That's the first step. Then you wash your face from your hairline or normal hairline, if you are bald, to your chin from ear to ear. And next you will wash your right hand up to and including your elbow, and then your left hand up to and including your elbow. Then you will wipe over your head from the front of your head, where your hair begins to the nape of your neck with wet hands. Now, you can use a dispensation, which is an alternative opinion on how you do something according to another scholarly opinion, usually based off of another madhab, another school. You can wipe over your head even with a wet finger, anywhere on your head between your hairline and that bone in the back of your head called the occiput. You can do this as a substitute to wiping over your head. And then you would wash your right foot up to and including your ankle, then your left foot up to and including your ankle. And finally, the last integral of the wudu is to make sure you're washing your limbs, not just letting water run on them without rubbing. And then doing the wudu in order and without delays. Now you can't just wash your face in one arm and then answer the phone and talk to someone and then come back and pick up where you left off, right? Now, you only need to use a small amount of water when making wudu. So you don't have to take a bath in the sink. Prophet Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, he only used about half of a cup of water called the mud for wudu. So when you make wudu, you can turn on your faucet to just a thin stream. Now, the sunnah of the wudu, or what we call the full wudu, or the maximum wudu, is to begin the wudu by saying Bismillah, which means in the name of Allah, and doing all that we just mentioned, but you would include rinsing the mouth and lightly sniffing water into the nostrils and then lightly blowing it out before you wash your face. And then wiping the outside and inside of your ears with wet hands after wiping over your head. And that's the wudu. Now, what breaks the wudu is the following. And again, I'm going to simplify this one. Any solid, liquid, or gas that comes from the front privates or the back privates, and that includes urinating, any type of discharge due to arousal or a natural discharge, a menstrual cycle for the woman, having a bowel movement, or having gas, this will break your wudu. Also, losing consciousness, that would include falling into a heavy sleep, but not a light sleep, as long as you're sleeping on your back. And touching the opposite sex with an intentional sexual desire. And touching one's private part. This would all break your wudu. Now, there are certain things that can happen that would necessitate taking a full shower before you pray. And this full shower is called ghusl. And those incidents are the following, and it's only 4 things. After the conclusion of a lady's menstrual cycle, she would have to make a ghusl before she prays. After the conclusion of a lady's postpartum bleeding, after a lady has a baby, she's going to have postnatal bleeding for a few weeks usually. After sexual intercourse, and after a sexual climax. After these 4 things, a person would have to make a ghusl before they can pray. And it doesn't have to be done immediately, but it has to be done so you can pray before the prayer time goes out. And it's simple. You make the intention to make ghusl in order to pray, to recite the Quran, to touch the Quran, and so on and so forth. And you would take a full shower from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet and everywhere in between. Now, it doesn't have to be with soap or shampoo, although, most people will use soap or shampoo. But it's not an obligation to shampoo your hair when making ghusl. Let's say if someone washed their hair yesterday, It's similar to wudu, so no one uses soap to wash their faces and arms and feet every time you make wudu. It's sunnah. The extra aspects of ghusl is rinsing the mouth, washing the hands at the outset, lightly sniffing water into the nostrils, and lightly blowing it out, and wiping the outer canals of both ears. Now, a couple of notes on purification. In order to make sure that your body and clothing and place of prayer is free of impurities, you have to make sure that when you use the bathroom, when you urinate or defecate, you have to be extra meticulous with your hygiene. So when you urinate or defecate, you have to cleanse yourself of all traces of impurities that came from your body, and then pour water on those areas where the urine and feces came out of. The word we use to use water to cleanse yourself after using the bathroom is called istinja. Istinja. So when someone says they need water for istinja, it means that they need water to cleanse themselves after using the bathroom. And that's for urinating and defecating, right? Now, you would first use toilet paper to cleanse yourself, then back it up with water to remove any traces of the impurity. Now, you can use either water only or toilet paper only. But the objective is to make sure that your body and clothing is free of impurities at all times. Now, if you're at work, you may have to use toilet paper only if you don't, bring a water bottle or something in the bathroom with you. But at home, get yourself an empty water bottle or repurpose like a dishwashing liquid bottle or something like this. I have a sprayer attached to my toilet, similar to the sprayer that you would use on the kitchen sink. It works great. Also for men must sit or squat when urinating. Standing up or using the urinals is not going to work because you're spraying najasa, filth all over the place, right? The last thing, just like when we enter the masjid, we take off our shoes. We also take off our shoes when we enter our homes. Why is this? So you won't bring the filth that you may have been stepping in all day inside of your home. So this is important. If you're living with non-Muslims who may not be concerned with walking the najasa into their home, then just make sure that when you pray at home, use a prayer rug. If you don't have a prayer rug, use a clean t-shirt, towel, or something like this. Okay. So that's purification. Make sure you understand the prerequisites of the Salah, the prayer. Make sure you understand how to make wudu and ghusl, and when it's required, and to cleanse yourself after going to the bathroom, and to take your shoes off when entering your homes. Inshallah, next time we'll delve into the prayer. Like, share, and subscribe. Assalamu alaikum.